Welcome to the 59th broadcast of the T-ROH show. This is your host, Keith. We've got some guests on the program today. First thing I wanted to bring up, though, was I did want to do a call out to pray for the victims of the Parkland shooting. That was a horrific thing. I've been looking at a lot of videos about that. And they're getting to a point where they're looking like the kid that's being accused didn't even have any guns with him. I don't know if you guys saw that or not. This is Lynn and Paul. Have you been watching that or following that at all?
I didn't catch that part. Wow.
Yeah, in other words, there's a couple of witnesses that say they saw that same kid walking through the hall with no guns in his hands while they heard shooting in the other part of the school. And they described the shooters as having a flak jacket and a helmet on. That blew me away. It's all over InfoWars. I mean, of course, they're going to be on it. But yeah, that was blowing me away. And they were saying that the kid was autistic. I don't know, but it helps if you just go through it, and take a look at it. Just go take a look at it and see what you think. But that's what's coming out of there. I'm not saying that I know what happened. I'm just saying that's what's coming out. So I thought that was quite interesting. Now, the T-ROH show normally deals with exposing, conspiracies and exposing falsehoods and that type of thing. And that's why it has gathered a really good following with very intelligent people that are actually wanting to know the truth. So it's great, and we get a lot of subscribers. The subscribers keep going up and up and up. We do appreciate that. So what we're going to be talking about today is a couple of things that I'm going to share with everybody exactly what I thought when I first heard some stuff. Okay, some certain terms. The very first thing was I heard about the Keshe Foundation, and then I heard about a guy in Iran, and I thought when he came out with what he did, which was a couple of years ago, he was going to share it with the world. I thought he was Muslim, that it was a way to, it was a temptation to accept, to make you, to turn you into a Muslim. That's exactly what I thought. But what is he, Lynn?
Mehran Keshe is an Iranian Jew who left at the time of the fall of the Shah, went to school. He was in London as a teenager and then went through the university there in London in nuclear science. And he's married to a Belgian woman. They have their main home in Italy. He's developing factories in Ghana and research facilities, as well as China. They've got one here, Arizona. In Arizona, they're developing Austria, and his goal is to have a factory on every continent. And I suspect they're doing something in Australia. Is there another one there?
Yeah, they're starting Australia also.
Okay. And he has lived and traveled worldwide. And so, your original thought and concept was, I would call him really a man of the world.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's the very first thing I thought. And I'm sure that's what a lot of people thought when they first hear about it, because they go, well, what's the Keshe Foundation? Oh, okay, another guy trying to say he's going to save the world, right? And it's going to be all free to everybody and blah, 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 blah. You know how that is, and nothing ever comes through. And that's how I kind of saw it. So I never really looked into it. So I'm glad you guys did. Okay. And then I started hearing about plasma energy. And so the very first thing I thought was the Marvel comics, and I'm going to shoot you with my plasma energy ray. Okay. And then we're calling Plasma Man. All right. That's the very first thing. So I'm thinking, okay, what's this plasma energy, And I'm thinking, what's that all about? And so you guys run the plasmaenergysolutions.com. We'll show you that website in a minute. But you're going to be extremely interested to hear what this stuff actually is. Okay, and what the Keshe Foundation was actually sharing with the world, and now we have an outlet here in America where you can benefit from this, and it's going to be almost unbelievable, but you're going to say, well, wait a minute, I can't disprove that. Okay, so that's what's as you think about it, as it's going to be explained today, I can't disprove this. All I can do is try it, and if it's a load of crap, then I want my money back. Okay, that kind of thing. All right. So, because it's almost one of those things too good to be true type deal. But it, as I was talking to Lynn and Paul for the first hour before we started the recording, at first I was thinking, oh man, is this going to come out? But as you start listening to a lot of this, then it starts to make sense. And then you go, oh, because it really opens up a lot of doors to which a lot of us are ignorant about. And a lot of that comes from the pharmaceutical industry. And you've got a story about that, Lynn, on what that's all about.
I sure do. And let's just start off and say, what if you could have a spray bottle that had some plasma energy water in it that you could spray on your hand if you had a sore hand? You could spray it and in your mouth and swallow it if you had indigestion. You could spray it on your feet if you had neuropathy. You could, let's see, how else are you using it? So let's say it's for inflammation. So let's say you can isolate the plasma energy of a plant, a very commonplace plant throughout American history until the late 1930s. And everybody had this herb as part of what you'd have in the medicine cabinet, if you will, or in your pantry, however you set your house up. But it was your go-to thing for any issues of inflammation. So in learning the Keshe technology, and there's hundreds of videos that are available. There's different Keshe Foundation websites that are available. We have videos on our Plasma Energy Solution website. Plus, we have quite a few pages that will explain things. We have testimonials and frequently asked questions. So there's a lot you can find out just on our little website, right? But in order to take something and isolate the energy of it, that is what Moran Keshe has taught people to do.
Okay,
and,
so wait a second, Lynn. I'm going to interrupt you.
Okay.
So in the 30s, the little well-known plant that everybody was using was categorized as what?
Well, what happened in the late 30s is the FDA came out with a categorization. They categorized this plant as a Schedule 1. Now, as a veterinarian, Paul had to keep track of Schedule 1 drugs because they were generally what was being used for anesthetic and pain.
Dangerous drugs.
Yeah, dangerous drugs. And so nobody paid attention when this was happening in the late 30s because they came out with a name for this plant that was never used. And they combined a couple of people's names in the Mexican language into one word. And what people were used to having as salves and lotions and creams and herbs and herb teas and things like that was categorized as marijuana. Nobody paid any attention to it because they'd never heard of it. Well, the AMA was even in an uproar when they found out that it had become Schedule 1. So the whole thrust of that was to remove an effective home remedy that had been used for hundreds, if not thousands of years by people out of their reach by making it illegal. And Paul's experience in veterinary practice was if there was a very effective medication, it often disappeared. And yet, well, I want to order some of that. Well, sorry, it isn't available anymore. But we have this other stuff that doesn't work as well, but you're going to end up buying a lot more of it. So anyway, that's the idea, was to take what Moran Keshe was teaching about plasma energy and isolate the energy from a plant. And then we could expand that and isolate it to a lot more things. So what's being shown right now on the screen is what is plasma energy. So Paul, you want to just give a brief rundown?
Right, and we don't want to say that this is psychic energy where you're hugging a tree. That's not what this is. Okay, so when
No.
somebody says plasma energy and they go, well, you're going to use the energy to do this, it doesn't mean that you're going to, it's not something that hasn't been proven. So I just want to clear that up, because that's what that sounds like. It really does, to anybody who's never heard of that before.
Scroll down a little more, and there's another little GIF showing the plasmatic magnetic. Oh, maybe there isn't. Sorry, it isn't there. Okay, go ahead, Paul.
Okay, all right, go ahead.
Well, basically, plasma energy is the energy of the universe. It's the gravitational magnetic fields that keep the planets from running into each other and helps them maintain their proper position in the universe. Now, this energy is the same thing that we isolate from different substances, whether they're herbs or minerals, metals, whatever. We, through a process all taught by Mr. Keshe, we isolate just the energy from these different materials, and he has taught how to use these for specific applications.
Okay, so
basically, in a nutshell, that's all it is, and there are explanations on the website.
Right, and there's also in other areas. Okay, so we're not just taking your word for it, it's in other areas also. To put it very simply, a plasma is an ionized gas. A gas into a sufficient energy is provided to free electrons from atoms and molecules, and to allow both species, ions and electrons, to coexist. So it keeps everybody away from everybody else.
Right.
Basically, in other words, so if we're running into each other, we're injuring each other. If you have something in your body that's been hit or injured, it's because something was smashed into it and it ran into something else, and that's what causes the energy. Am I correct on that?
And that's a good analogy. Yes.
Okay. All right. So, and then they said it's the most common state of matter in the universe, but you tend to disagree with the matter because it's the energy that cannot be seen, which is what we're witnessing here. It's the energy between the magnet and the metal that nobody can see, but you can only see the result of it, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like having the elementary school science experiment. You put some metal shavings on a sheet of paper and you put a magnet under it, and you watch the shavings move around the paper as you move the magnet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was the plasma energy, the magnetic gravitational energy.
Then it comes to you have a family of 5, and one child looks completely different than everybody else. So you're thinking, okay, the wife must have stepped out with the mailman or the milkman, because this child looks nothing like any of these. And that's usually what happens, right? So, and it happens. And they call them the odd child or the oddball. And all that comes from resonant energy. That child has a different resonance than the others. So what is being formed, like how they look, how they act and everything, is coming from a different, what they call a vibration that can't be seen, but the result is there. Okay,
that's true.
I learned that in a video. It's called Untold History. It's an awesome video series. It combines science, religion, and everything else in about a 56 video series that are about 10 minutes each. And it really gets into ego and everything else. It's excellent information that somewhat explains this also, but brings it into a real evidence type thing that does prove, so that the people's beliefs aren't crazy. They're saying, no, it's right here. We've proven this. No, we've proven this. This is all real. Okay. So I just wanted to bring that up, that's where I was thinking about that. And it's usually that child has a different resonance with them than another one. And when you brought up the magnet thing and the metal shavings under the paper, if you were to put sound to that, it would cause those metal shavings, depending on the type of resonance of that sound, it would change the diagram of the metal shavings. Believe it or not. When you change the frequency, it changes the way the metal shavings form. So enough about that. Let's get back to this. And I just wanted to put that in there. I thought that was interesting because it kind of goes along with what you guys are talking about. And so now we're dealing with plasma energy. And so people are going to say, well, what does this do for me and all that? So let's go to Italy.
Okay, so what happened a couple years ago in Norcia, Italy, is they had an earthquake. And generally, the first responders are Red Cross when you have a situation like that. And what happened is there are a lot of Keshe Foundation students in Europe, and so a lot of them made their way to Norcia with their plasma energy items that they'd made in their own homes. Most of these have been home scientists who've learned this. So they may have had pain pads, they may have had pain pens, but everything was based on the whole plasma energy concept. And they took them in because there was not enough medicine. There was a problem with potable water. So you had a myriad of problems getting in, and then you have the problems of getting things shipped in there. And as a result of that, and the response of the people and how well the plasma energy items that were brought in to help them, the Keshe Foundation Italy now has a first responder designation in Italy, just like Red Cross, because of the effectiveness of what was taken in and shared with the people at that time. And when the hurricanes happened this year in Puerto Rico and Dominica, there was widespread destruction in Dominica. It was horrific. And if you scroll down to this photograph just a little ways here, this was taken by Tom Salas, whose parents live in Dominica, and he had worked with plasma energy in their garden for a couple of years. And whenever he was there, he'd, add plasma water to the plants and everything. And what happened is if you look at these photos, 90% of Dominica was absolutely destroyed. And when he got to his parents 3 weeks after it happened, their home and garden was completely intact and untouched. So the plasma energy had an oasis effect around that garden. This is a picture of his parents' garden. Now, he's taken videos and put them up on YouTube where he's showing walking around the perimeter, and there's you could call it a line of demarcation immediately at the edge of that plasma energy. Wherever it extended out, it's a wasteland. There are no leaves or flowers on the plants. The trees are completely bare and stripped. Nothing happened to his parents. That is what it looked like. And this photograph was taken by people who were there. Their home was being built. They were in a rental house. and everything kept breaking them around them during the hurricane until they finally spent the night in their car. And this is the picture they took the next day. So it was a pretty horrific event. And so what you can see happened is the plasma energy set up a protective field environment around the home and the gardens of his parents.
Yeah,
So
this was taken the morning after the Hurricane Maria.
Yes. And he didn't get there for.
Yeah, this was
Yeah.
also taken the morning after the hurricane.
Yeah, I mean, this is.
So this was taken then, and these people used plasma energy water, okay, on their garden, and this is what it looked like for them.
Exactly. And it was what he learned from the Keshe Foundation workshops and teachings, and how he applied it, to their home, and then to his own home, what I believe he lives in Mexico. And so this is a pretty dramatic demonstration of a type of protective zone that you can have around a place. Now, when we do the plasma energy, when you stop right there, Paul developed the plasma energy vials, and we made a station out of that, because what we wanted to do is set up something. What if there was a disaster? What if you had no food delivery, no medicine delivery? What's the worst case scenario? Well, we just looked at it in Dominica. That's the worst case scenario. What if you don't have potable water? So with these energy stations, they're clear plastic or clear glass containers, and they have different vials with different plasma energy combinations attached to the energy stations. And our idea when Paul first developed this was, okay, can we actually use this if we have some food? There's 2 food vials on here of 21 days of meals that we stored in the freezer. And then he developed the plasma energy from the food that we had saved. So after he got that all set up, we decided to test it out. Well, what would happen if you didn't have any deliveries for 10 days? So for 10 days, we did not have dish meals at the table. We would sit down with a glass of plasma energy water, and we would drink. That would be our meal. Now, 3 times during the 10 days, we did have a small meal. And one of them was because we'd been invited to our son's, and it was kind of funny because wow, it's kind of nice to eat a meal, And he's going, what are you guys doing now? And so what we found when we did it, we did not have a loss of energy. We still went on our daily walks. I was typing all the weekly workshops, and they generally take me anywhere from 25 to 35 hours to type. Paul was still working in his workshop with the plasma energy. I mean, we were fine. The biggest thing we missed was the social aspect of food, of smelling it, chewing it, tasting it, that whole aspect. But there was not an energetic issue at all with the food.
Yeah,
We had
there's nothing like a good cheeseburger, is all I'm saying.
Right.
We had no lack of energy, and we were not lightheaded. We had no hunger pangs. And if you go 2 or 3 days without eating, your stomach is really growling.
Oh yeah.
Well, that does not happen when you use this plasma water. And you don't even miss eating if you're busy. If you're just sitting around thinking about food, you're gonna miss it. But if you keep yourself busy, you don't even miss it. So it's a good, effective meal replacement in a bad situation.
Well, it can also be used as a diet.
But yeah, right.
People
you
that
will
go on diet, yeah, they can use it as a diet thing.
You will lose weight initially,
Yeah.
but after uh, after a few days, I quit losing weight, and I maintained the weight that I had for the duration.
No kidding.
So you don't become emaciated. You just, I don't know why, you just don't.
Well, wouldn't you say that plasma energy is the end result? Let's say we're looking at a real healthy little salad and we eat our salad and chew it all up and it goes in and it gets digested. What finally ends up as the end product in our cells for the energy for those cells is plasma energy.
Right.
So what you've done with the plasma energy water is you just bypassed all the work that your system had to do in order to get that energy to the cell level. It still got to the cell level, but it didn't have to go through all the digestive process. So when we did the plasma energy station, these are all the things that we put together. And scroll back up, if you would, to the top on there, Keith.
I was looking under. I love animals, so I was,
Oh, okay.
I saw
He's
the
looking.
little puppy. I thought that was a cute little puppy. But
Well,
yeah, I'm an animal lover. I love dogs and
well, and part of what we've done with the plasma energy solutions, our cats get plasma energy water, and we don't have dogs because we're in a housing situation that does not allow for that right now.
Right.
So we had one cat that had a rough beginning. She was dumped in a snowstorm as a kitten. And we ended up adopting 2 cats from a neighbor who moved and couldn't take them. And she was very skittish. She'd run for cover whenever the door opened and somebody strange walked in the house. And since she's been on that, she's become much more mellow. I don't know that she'll ever be a lap cat, but once in a while, she will come and sit on the lap for 20 or 30 seconds. But it made a big difference for her. And
so she walks up and says, I don't know if I can handle it. I'll see y'all later, man. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, she ran for cover, and you didn't see her the whole time people were there. So, and the other one's kind of a mischievous cat. It hasn't changed her mischievousness at all. But
okay, so people are going to wonder, all right, because that actually they're going to be thinking probably the same way I do. Okay, great, wonderful, sounds good. How much and how do I do this? Okay, how do you use plasma energy?
Okay.
So I'm not expecting you to say how much, just as how, the plasma energy, how is it used?
The way we use it is we drink the water. I have laundered some of our clothing and some of our sheets and towels. When I launder them, I do an extra rinse cycle and I'll add some plasma energy station water to it. So we're just kind of infusing the energy throughout our house.
Okay, so how do you get to the plasma energy water?
Okay, how do you get to the plasma energy water?
Because see, what I'm doing is I'm trying to bypass Paul's explanation, so we all don't go to sleep.
Oh, how do you get to it? Got it.
Because he's going to start talking lab stuff, and man, that's going to lose me and everybody else. Nothing personal, Paul. I'm just saying that's what happens. So.
Basically, when you want to utilize plasma energy, and let's say you want to utilize what I've been describing, you can go to our website, and we've got the plasma energy station vials for sale, and those are $197. We have the pads for sale for $97, which were made with the same water.
Stop right there, because guess how long are they going to be able to use that?
Indefinitely.
There you go, folks.
Yes.
It's $197 total, indefinite. In other words, you can use it. It's going to last longer than you.
Well, and here's the thing. There's no expiration date on plasma energy. And you don't open the vials. You just attach them to the container that you're going to use for the water that you're drinking and cooking with, and putting in spray bottles and spraying your plants with, and putting in your cat's water dish or your dog's water dish. And people that are using it with farm animals find that the animals prefer the water, that they'll hang a plastic water bottle in the side of the trough that just is filled with the plasma water, and the animals will go to that watering trough rather than the others.
Okay, so they can just get distilled water, put this vial in it,
Yes.
and what happens is it apparently change or corrects the structure of the water.
The plasma energy fields go through the vial into the container.
The
And
plasma,
so now,
okay, so everybody understands that. The energy fields go through the bottle, nothing else. So it's not like you're putting it in a machine and all of a sudden you have plasma water. So, because that's what it sounds like. You're saying what it sounds like is, well, how do I get this plasma water? Well, it's just water, folks. It's just if it's either well water, distilled water, purified water, whatever it is. And then you put these vials in it, and the plasma energy goes through the vial and into the water, which turns that water into plasma energy water.
correct. And when you live outside of the US, we don't send the vials out of the country. We send the plasma energy pads. And if you went past it, but it showed a white tub that had vials on the side, and then it showed some pads on the top. And what we found when we tested the energy fields of the vials, of the larger pads, and of the small Post-it note size pads, every one of them had an energy field of 33 feet from the beginning to where the energy field ended. And which surprised me, because we tend to think of things like, well, one teaspoon is a lot smaller than half a cup, and that's smaller than a pint, and that's smaller than a gallon. But with plasma energy, you're not measuring things that way. So the energy fields, it doesn't matter if it's a little Post-it note size or a 3-gallon tub with 16 vials attached to it. You've still got the same plasma energy fields.
Okay, so the tests have shown success in lab animals and human beings by altering conditions of cancer, AIDS, diabetes, malaria, Ebola, E. coli, high blood pressure, brain tissues in adults and children, and other imbalances in the body. Continuous testing is underway and using plasma energy to restore neurological balance caused by injury, disease, cataracts, Alzheimer's, and postnatal depression.
And I'd like Paul to say something here about the inflammation and how it's affected his use of the insulin, as well as what he's been using on cataracts and what's happened with that.
Yeah,
so
please
go ahead.
Please do.
Okay, the sacred plant inflammation water that I use, I put the vial in a spray bottle, and I fill a spray bottle with filtered water. And what I do is I just spray it in my mouth and around my head and on my chest and back. And it can, when I get out of the shower and I dry off, I spray myself, and then a couple of times during the day, I'll just spray it on the outside of my clothing. And I have found that I've been diabetic for 33 years, and I found that my need for insulin has decreased to about 50% of what it was 2 years ago. So it's not a cure, but it's a big improvement.
Yeah.
Also, I was taking blood pressure medication. I no longer take it. My blood pressure is normal. And that's just from the inflammation of the sacred plant vials. And now, as far as the cataracts go, being diabetic for 33 years has caused vision problems. And I was at the point where I was afraid to drive because my vision was so blurred. Well, I've been using the the plasma energy in my eyes for the last 18 months to 2 years, and my cataracts, which was what the problem was, I was developing cataracts. My cataracts are 90% gone. I could read small print without glasses, which is unheard of. Cataracts do not reverse. The only remedy for cataracts, as far as medical science knows at this point, is surgical removal. And I have not had to do that, and I can see just fine. So those are two instances of anecdotal information that I personally have experienced using the plasma energy.
Well, and you also had your hand cramp up.
Yeah, yesterday my hand was cramping, and I took the Sacred Plant spray bottle and sprayed my hand front and back, and within 2 minutes the cramps were gone and they did not return. It had been cramping for about 45 minutes, and I was stretching it and massaging it, and I couldn't get rid of it. But 2 minutes after I sprayed it, the inflammation was gone and the cramp was gone.
Right. So if you got this for $97, you would never have to get another one.
On the eye drops, you're correct, because what you do, and what I have people do is I say, take a large jar like you see in these pictures and put your vial in that, and then get yourself a small bottle, like maybe a glass spice jar, and fill it 2/3 with your with your plasma water. And there's a specific combination for the eye relief. And then on top of that, you can put olive oil, avocado oil, coconut fractionated oil. If you use regular coconut oil, when it gets cold, it's going to get gloppy and funky and be a nuisance to work with. So you can get fractionated oil where it doesn't ever solidify when the temperatures get cooler. And all you do is when the water goes down to say half in your little bottle, you add more water. When the oil goes down, you have a third of the top third is filled with the oil. You just add more oil. And then we shake the bottle before we use it and let the oil separate out again, because that's just distributing the plasma fields really well in that. And if I could only have two things, it used to be one thing, but I'm going to go to two things in my medicine cabinet, okay? I would have the oil, the eye drop oil, and I would have the inflammation. And my brother's had a lot of skin cancers. He's been going to the skin cancer doctor for 40 years. And he started using the eye formula. I said, put that together and use that. So every time he had any of his skin cancers removed from his head, they'd say, well, you're going to have to go see the plastic surgeon. He says, yeah, well, we'll see. He'd put the oil all over his head morning and night, and he never did have to go to the plastic surgeon. It's healed fine. And he sent me an email recently and said, I went to the dermatologist, and for the first time in 40 years, I had no pre-cancerous conditions on my head or my face, which is huge. And a brother-in-law who lives in Arizona saw him and said, wow, I've never seen his skin look that good. So he's really a happy camper. So there are additional uses for that than just the eye, the approach to the eyes. And then just having the inflammation. When we did the plasma energy station, we do have the plasma energy of the hemp plant in that, because I used hemp seed, I used hemp oil. There were just a lot of things. And one of the things we were able to do was take all the vitamins and minerals and supplements that we were taking. And that can really run up a pretty hefty bill every month, even if you're a pretty good shopper. And so Paul made went through the process to get the plasma energy of those. We aren't spending $150 or more every month on all those supplements because we now have them that way. And Paul also did that. I said, you know, if there's ever a disaster, you might wish you had your meds, because at one point he had a kidney transplant. And so you don't want to run out of those meds. And so he did make a plasma energy out of all that medication, and he has it on reserve just if we would need it. He made the plasma energy out of dog food and cat food. Well, what about our little guys, you know? Got to take care of them too. Now, our cats aren't too pleased because they're real conditioned to see the bottom of their bowl covered with food and not empty. So if we were without cat food, they would have to go through a little social conditioning. They would be unhappy, but they would not be hungry. You know, they wouldn't be emaciated. They wouldn't be starving.
What did you say earlier, John, when we were talking about this before the show? Can we give this to the breathing device for enhancing emotional and physical balance to judges and politicians? Can we please do that? That would be great.
I told John a quick story while you were out, and in the little town that we live in, there was a real ruckus. The mayor and the chief of police were imports from other areas, and they weren't natives, you know, to the town and the state. And the police got in a heap of trouble because they went to another town and exercised a warrant, and they didn't have jurisdiction. So everybody was just raising Cain over the whole thing. And I thought, well, you know what? I think I know what I'll do. So I made some, the zinc and CO2 are a good combination for emotions. And especially if you go higher with the plasma energy fields of zinc, in proportion to the CO2. So I made some patches, and they were small. They were Post-it note size, and I just took a little walk downtown and picked up a rock here and there and put them under that. And the rocks happened to be around City Hall, and then and near the police station. And then I went to the coffee shop where these guys always had their morning coffee and taped a little one to the bottom of a table. And I told John, I don't know what part I played in this, but a month later, the chief of police was gone, and a month after that, the mayor resigned. So, well, you know, I think you can help.
So you just actually created a revolution and nobody knew it.
Nobody knew it. And there were some other women who were talking. They said, you know, we got to do something. This is ridiculous. And I said, well, you know, you could always take that water that I gave you and make some little patches and just park them around town here and there. Just, you know, walk downtown, pick up a rock here and there and put them. I don't know what they thought when they redid the gardens at City Hall a couple years ago, or a year ago, last summer, I mean, because they probably found these little, what the heck is this?
You guys had a story about Australia and some guy, a lettuce farm.
Yes.
And what he did.
Yes,
this is where it starts to get to where, okay, because basically we're talking about cannabis to a certain extent, the cannabis oil.
We are with the inflammation relief, but when we're talking about the gardens and the farms, we're talking about CO2. And the worst thing we have going on now is, you know, the carbon. We've got to reduce the carbon. If people would use their common sense, the trees give off oxygen and they use the carbon. You know, so what do we want to do? Get rid of our source of oxygen? But anyway, the lettuce thing. The guys down in Australia have a hydroponic lettuce farm set up, and they had quite a few they had several greenhouses, but they circulated the water from the fish tanks, then on around through several greenhouses of lettuce that they were growing. And they tested using it was CO2 water, wasn't it? They put CO2 plasma energy water in like a plastic pop bottle or water bottle, and they hung it in the circulating water system. And what they found is their production almost doubled. They said their production was really tough in their summers when it got really hot, because the greenhouses were hot, the air was hot, the water was hot, everything was just there. And they showed pictures of the lettuce where the roots were just kind of brown looking. And what happened, the roots didn't turn brown. The plants were healthy and vigorous. They had a bigger production than they'd ever had in the summer. And it was from adding the plasma energy fields to the water in their whole system. And this stop right there where you are on that orchid, that woman that sent me the picture, sent me the blooms in May. And then she sent me another one. She said, wow, this is July and I'm still watering them with the plasma water and the blooms are still there. And I got another one. It's August. They're still blooming. And then finally, you know, they kind of gave up the ghost, but she never had orchid blooms last that long. So she was really happy. And she showed there's one dead, there she is just with her garden with using plasma energy water. And, you know, her tomato plant tree, it was pretty amazing. And somebody else had made a plasma energy out of bat guano and worm castings. Now that's a picture that you're scrolling through of the plasma energy station with the pads on it. And those are all three things there that you see in the picture had energy fields of 33 feet out when I tested each one individually. So it's not a matter of bigger is more. So yeah, and those were her morning glories. She just was, wow. She said, this is just amazing.
My grandmother used to grow stuff like this when she was younger too. I mean, they had a green thumb. I don't know what the hell they did, but
yeah, she was so happy with her gardens.
Our house is where plants go to die. So that's how that works.
Well, this is a plasma energy station set up with a Walmart iced tea dispenser. And then a friend sent me one of these because she just sewed up a little, like a belt to hold all the plasma energy vials. And then she just put the belt on over the container, and they just sit on the outside there. So that was nice.
Interesting.
And one of the other things we've done, the CO2 water, at one point Mr. Keshe said, use this if you're in a cold climate on your gloves, your scarves, your hats, and your socks, your winter wear, to prevent frostbite. And we have a little vial of CO2 water on our front porch. And what's our lowest temperature been so far?
17 below.
17 below. That vial of water has never frozen.
No kidding.
No kidding. And then I thought, well, I'm going to test it further. So I took an old small pickle relish jar and put about 2 inches of water in the bottom, and then a vial full of the CO2 water in the bottom of it. And that has never frozen. It's out on the front porch too. I just wanted to see, well, let's see, does it make a difference if it's in a plastic pill vial or in a glass jar? And it just has not frozen at all. So that was pretty exciting.
So you guys have, this is an association, and you sell internationally, and you also sell in the States and all that.
Yes.
I looked at your association. And you also, for folks that want to pass this along, you also have an affiliate program.
Yes, we have an affiliate program.
That's down at the bottom. And if you want to become an affiliate, you can, okay, to pass this on to your friends and everything else. So this is not a greed website, folks. Just let you know. I've been looking through it for a while. It's not about that. It's about helping people out with stuff that they just would never believe until they started experiencing it themselves. You know, and then
All these jars that and all these jars you're looking at right now on the screen, the powder in the bottom is the end result of what takes Paul anywhere from 2 to 3 months to develop. And it's developed in different ways, whether it's food is done one way and other is done through more of what you might compare to an electrolysis type of program. But the plasma energy comes from the powder in the bottom of each of those jars, and they're all different kinds that you see portrayed, which is showing what we're using, the different things that we're using in this. And we had a friend stop by today who's got a
mycobacterial lung infection.
Okay, there you go. And so we sent her.
Go ahead.
It's a combination fungus and bacterial lung infection. It's not to the point of pneumonia, but it's to the point of debilitation. It's chronic.
Yeah, and so she's going to use the copper oxide water, which is very effective against colds and bacterial infections, and then the inflammation. And the copper oxide you see in the picture right there, it looks kind of turquoise blue. And
this one?
Yeah. Okay. And so whenever you get a vial, you see the little vial in the picture next to all the jars, they will have that vial has a combination of whatever jars you see of the water. And we only use the water off the top and in putting into the vials, and the powder stays in the jar, because that's like your forever plasma energy. I don't like bank. Thank you. That's a good word.
And that's what makes it last and all that. Okay.
Now, Keith, one thing I wanted to also mention is if people are utilizing the Continental Bank,
okay,
we will do half Continental dollars and half ferns, since that seems to be what we all have to utilize right now in our society. And there is there's a code that they will have available to them that they can put in. It says coupon, and they put in the code number, and then the website will recognize that they're going to pay half ferns on the website through PayPal or however they want to pay it. And then I'll have to figure out how we go over to the Continental side. I've got an account under Patricia Lynn Schmaltz, and they would match those funds with Continental dollars.
Right. Yeah, we have to also, because those have been revalued based on the amount that are in there also. So you just have to figure out the revalue and all that. Continental dollar has gone way up, by the way, as far as value is concerned, because of the amount that are in the system itself, and that's been earned and or created and by labor.
Okay.
And, so you just do the math, and there you go. But you have, I mean, is this the whole thing? Is this like all of them right here?
That's all 16. And then what you see is the way I package them to send them. They're put in between craft foam, 2 layers of that. They're taped into the foam, and then I do bubble wrap around them, and then they go into a little box, and the box goes into a priority envelope. And it's turned out to be a good way to send them. The only problems I've had And it happened 2 years in a row over the Christmas holidays when things were not moving fast enough, and the temperatures also went down to 20 below.
They froze and broke.
Yeah, they froze and broke. And so I had to replace vials for one individual who had an issue. But scroll down a little bit. I want to show you the knee rings. Paul makes knee rings and wrist rings right there. See those plastic rings there?
Mm-hmm.
They're filled with plasma water. And there's 3 that would go on your knee or, say, your wrist if you had a wrist issue. And Paul, why don't you tell, because you use the knee rings.
Yeah, there's 3 rings. You slip them on up over your calf, and 2 of them go over your knee, and 1 just goes over your calf. They have energy fields of different metals. There's magnesium, copper, and carbon dioxide. And plus there's some salts in there, some Korean salt in there. And those relieve the pain in my knees from bad conformation. I was born with crooked knees, and if I don't wear those knee rings at least 3 days a week, my knees hurt so bad I can hardly walk. But if I wear those knee rings, and I don't have to wear them every day, then I have no pain at all. So it's not a cure for bad conformation, but it does relieve the pain.
Okay, so what we're seeing here then is basically, guys, because we're gonna have to wrap it up. We're not seeing a gouging here, folks. We're not seeing greed. We're not seeing anything else. What we're seeing is a couple of people that really want to help others using this type of deal, and a way of changing your life. So why not? If it's only a one-time thing, why not? I mean, at least, the least you could do is try it. So it doesn't hurt to do that. But at any rate, yeah, I saw this, and if you do see crazy people, you can just get a spray bottle and just spray them with it. Just walk up to them, here, I need to fix you, because you're crazy. So I'm gonna spray you.
I had one lady who makes pie crusts, and she's kind of the, family and neighborhood champion pie crust maker. And she talked about using plasma energy water, and she said she made the best crust she'd ever made with it. And now that's all she uses in it.
No kidding. Okay. Well,
no
yeah,
kidding.
I mean, if there's so a lot of these testimonials obviously can be verified. So this is not, and you guys have been doing this for how long? Last
2
couple
years.
of years or so?
Yeah, we've done it for the last couple of years. And we went to the Red Pill Expo last year that G. Edward Griffin did in Bozeman.
Mm-hmm.
And from that, we ended up with a radio interview with John B. Wells. And, he was pretty skeptical about kind of what you said at the beginning. Okay, so what's this Iranian trying to do, this Iranian scientist?
Yeah, that's what you're thinking, It's like,
yeah.
All right, what's he trying to do here? Yeah.
And he told us, he said, I will cut you off if this is bogus. I said, okay, that's fair. Our interview went for 2.5 hours, and we've got it on, I think, under videos. There's links to videos that Paul has done. We have some products to help pets with anxiety, for cataracts in pets. And we've got...
There it is, John Will.
Oh, yeah. This is a new how to make the Gans water video. So this will give people an idea how things are done.
Right, because I invite them to check it out. Look at everything.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, check the whole thing out and just make your own decision. It's not a big deal. If you think it's crap, walk away. If you don't, take a look at it. It doesn't hurt to look at it and understand maybe a different way of thinking. And that's what we do here. You got to think differently. If we're going to change things, first thing you got to do is change the way you think.
Exactly. And all they have to do is go to plasmaenergysolution.com
Mm-hmm.
and then just scroll through the different topics. And there's just lots of information on there. We tried to make it as educational as we could for people.
Okay. Hey, sounds fair to me. All right, folks. I want to appreciate you listening to the 59th broadcast of the T-ROH Show. We do appreciate the likes and we do appreciate the subscribes. And thank you very much, Lynn and Paul. And we will see you guys next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.